Okay, I'm back. I've just had a quick read in the actual main rulebook. That's to tell the truth, the sort of quick start guide doesn't really explain particularly well what to do if they go above their stamina rating. So basically, these guys are going to roll for a break test. They took 2 hits from the first volley and a further 2 hits from the second, and the disordered. So I believe it's a -1 on their break test roll, and I will do that now. So we've got a 7. The unit holds its ground. It stays where it is and does not move. So I guess it just takes that fire, and that is the end of the British turn. There's no further shooting, so I'll be back again at the end of the French turn, or well, the end of French movement anyway. And of course, then there'll be probably some live firing for the French. Hopefully, it'll go a little bit more smooth this time. See you in a second. So I've just done the French. This would be turn 6, I believe. So French move turn 6. We got the disordered chasseurs cheval in the light woods. The 24th line infantry moved forward to. I mean, they could have gone a little closer, but they didn't want to. They basically moved up to probably about 4 or 5 inches away from the 33rd. The 34th line also had a great success and had up to 2 moves. They moved up 1. Because again, they didn't want to get too close. And finally, with great pleasure, the chasseurs de cheval over in the forest here have obviously finished pillaging and actually decided to follow some orders and begin moving across this field here, hoping to clear the wall and maybe zoom up and possibly even try and get around the back of these guys, although that will get them within range of that. But certainly a little bit of a threat on the British right flank there from those chasseurs. And of course the 15th line, who rather miserably failed to move at all and stayed put right when they were kind of needed to push forward into the attack. And the brigade commander moved forward. He was kind of hoping to move a little bit closer to the chasseurs de cheval to try and give them an inspiring speech to get them back into some sort of order. But they have taken a pretty nasty raking, and it wouldn't surprise me if these guys might have to start retreating rather than try and engage. So that is the end at the end of the French movement, and I'll be back in a second, and we're going to start doing some French combat. Okay, I'm back. I've just measured up. Nobody's in extreme close range, so we'll start off the combat. Let me just actually sit down. I have trouble standing up for long periods of time. Okay, so basically we're going to go for these guys are going to engage the Pianet division. Because there's like a rocky outcrop on the side of the road there, I'm going to give them some light cover, so I'll give them an extra +1. Just lucky that there happens to be a rocky outcrop on the outskirts of that road. The 30th not getting engaged at all, and the 33rd foot will be engaged by the 24th over here. So let's get going. We'll start with the 34th. So I believe, let's get some dice. You get there 3 dice. And we're going to give the 33rd some light cover as well, because they've got some sporadic hedging there. Some overgrown hedges at the side of the, well, not hedges, but overgrown sort of grass and long grass and stuff at the side of the road there, which kind of obscures their view a little bit. So let's go, I guess we'll need 5s and 6s to hit. So let's roll the dice. So we got only 1 hit, and it's just a straight up hit. So this is on the 33rd. So they basically take 1 hit. And let me just double check. They're not, I don't think they're, sorry about this. I'm one of those guys that always forgets the rules as I go along. So I'm not shaken. I believe that's it. I've just taken 1 casualty. I'm going to cut off here and be back again in a second. Hold on. Okay, I'm back. I just had a quick read of the rules again, and so I forgot to do the British saves. So these guys took 1 hit, so they'll roll for a save. They saved, so they don't take any hits at all. So that is the 34th line firing against the no, the 24th firing against the 33rd, and now we will do the 34th. Let me just close the book here. So we've got the 34th firing against the PNA division. Let's see what happens. 3 dice, and we'll give them +1 because of their rocky outcrop cover. So we get a single hit again, and roll for save, and they save it. So completely ineffectual French fire. You know, I'm sure they hit a few guys, but not enough to affect the unit in any way whatsoever. So a quick overview of the table again at the end of the French turn, going into the next British. So you can see that we've got 2 engaged infantry units there. The light infantry sagging at the back. We have got the chasseurs starting to move up, which could be a threat to these guys. The cannons still slightly out of range. I'm not sure exactly what I'm going to do about that, because it might have been a little bit of a tactical error on the British part, because although it's nice to have the hill to be able to fire over the targets, if the French never come into range of it, it's kind of pointless. So perhaps they'll start, I guess, and without even knowing it, the French have basically managed to make the British cannon more or less ineffectual at the moment, which I guess is lucky for them. But then again, they shot and caused no damage whatsoever, where those chasseurs de cheval were basically chewed up. So let's go to the British turn and see what happens next. Okay, I'm back at the end of the British movement. Some quite exciting things happened. Obviously, the British had some slight problems of being out of command range, but luckily these 3 main units here didn't actually need to move, so that was kind of lucky. However, the 30th actually blundered and took a move back. So why the commanding officer would think that he got ordered to take a reverse back when all the rest of the chaps are engaging, I don't really know. Perhaps he thought he was being kept back as reserves or something. And the British decided to move their cannon right the way up to almost the edge of the hill there, and to see if they could try and creep up in range of the French. However, they are literally about an inch or, well, probably about 2 or 3 inches out of range of the French still. So I'm still not 100% sure what I'm going to be doing with those guys. Next up will be the British shooting phase, and this is basically how it's going to play out. So we'll have the PNA division. Obviously they'll have to make their roll, their freshly raised roll. We'll engage the 24th again, and the 33rd will engage the 34th, and I think the Griffhorn division are going to take another pot shot at those chasseurs to try and finish them off, because they're in real bad shape. So I'll be back up in a second. I'll cut it off here because I'll stand up and get ready to roll the dice and all that sort of stuff. It'll be easier for me just to do a cut here. See you in a second. We're back, and we're going to start off with the PNA division opening fire on the 34th line. 3 dice and no modifiers. Let's first of all roll the freshly raised table for the Landwehr. Oh dear. Terror. They basically need 6s to hit. So I don't know what particularly scared them. Maybe it was just seeing the regiment next to them take a fillet to fire. But these guys are shaken up a little bit, and their musketry is going to be a little bit off. So 6s to hit, and they completely miss. So that is that's the end of their firing. Next up, the 33rd Foot, which have taken 1 casualty. They're going to open up on these guys too. 3 dice. Let me just. I'm just going to cut it quickly just to double check that there's no other modifiers because I've taken a casualty. I'll be back in a second. I don't think there is any modifiers. Please feel free to tell me in the comments if there are. So the 33rd has taken 1 casualty. I had a quick brush over the rules in the main rule book. I couldn't see anything that says that a non-shaken unit that's taken 1 casualty needs to actually have any modifiers on its normal shooting roll. So we will roll the 3 dice, firing against the 24th. We have a single hit. It's not shaken, and we'll roll a save for that 1 hit, and a save for the 6. So ineffectual fire from the 33rd. Next up, we're going to go for the PNA division there, firing at the 34th. So 3 dice. This unit's taken no casualties, but I do have to roll on the freshly raised table first, so let's do that. They get a 5, which is no effect, so these guys will fire normally. 3 dice, no modifiers. So what do we get? We get a 6, ooh, a 6, a 4, and I believe the other dice disappeared. Oh, 2 6s. So I believe that is a shaken, which goes on the French. Just grab a bit of cotton wool over here. these guys. And we'll roll for some saves, otherwise they've got 3 casualties coming. Okay, so they saved 1, which will give them 2 casualties, but of course they have been shaken by that, so that's going to affect them, but at least they managed to save 1, because the old French, they're not up on their shooting at the moment. So they take, I got these little cardboardy things from the starter set, quite handy. 2 casualties, and of course they're shaken, and that's some pretty good shooting from the old PNA division there. And now finally, I could well get caught up in rules problems again here with these boys. They're going to open fire on the Chasseurs de Cheval. They are going to have 1 cover, but these guys are in pretty bad shape. I believe they're probably going to end up taking some kind of break test again. So let's first of all roll on the table, and they get a 1, which is a 6 to hit. Actually, I've already moved them, haven't I? They missed. Okay, so that basically ends the British firing, because I've already shot at them and they missed. That is the end of turn. I can't remember if it's 6 or 7 now, possibly 7. And the old French, they're not having too much luck. They're you know, they've only caused 1 casualty. The British lines are holding fast. And the French, I suppose, well, they've had 1 unit completely mauled, and 1 unit pretty badly mauled, and finally, at least another unit which didn't move at all, which is kind of needed, and of course a little bit of luck there with the old chasseurs finally deciding to take orders and begin to move up. Whether or not they're going to be much of a threat, I don't know. Let's prepare to go to the next turn, and it'll be the French movement phase, I guess. Catch you in a second. Okay, French movement phase. We have the French commander moved up a little bit closer towards the chasseurs. Now I'm not sure if this is in the rules. I think it is, that they took their own initiative to do a fallback move, which I believe is in the rules. Please correct me if I'm wrong, but they basically retired 1 move back in a straight line. These 2 French line infantry units, I did think about retreating these guys, but I thought no. I mean, they have taken 2 hits, but they're kind of needed, especially because the 15th line refused to move again. However, the Chasseurs de Cheval did get a move, and they came out of that field over the wall, and using the gateway there as well to advance into open ground now. Sorry, zoomed in instead of zoomed out. So they're basically out in the open now, so they can actually start lunging forward. So that's the end of the French movement, and going into combat next. Pretty simple. The 24th, these guys over here, are going to open up on the 33rd foot again, and these boys here, even though they're shaken, will use their 2 dice to open up on the Piano Brigade again. So that is what we'll do, and you might as well just do it straight away without the cut this time. So we'll start off with these guys that are shaken. Now these guys do have cover still, which means they'll still need their 5s or 6s to hit. So let's roll the dice, see what happens. We got a single hit, and they'll roll for their save, and they save it. So ineffectual fire. And for the next unit, so the 24th opening up, sorry, not the 24th, the 34th, no, sorry, the 34th was firing at the piano brigade, and they were ineffective. Now the 24th will open up on the 33rd foot, and they get cover, so they'll be hitting on 5s or 6s, but they do get the full 3 dice. So let's go for that. Oh, I'm on the wrong coloured dice actually. No, I'm not. Yeah, so all miss. So completely ineffectual fire from the French. That ends the French firing turn, and it's over to, let me just double check, I believe it's over to the Brits' turn. Yes. So I'll be back at the end of the British movement phase, if there is any. British movement done. Brigade commander stayed where he was. British cannon tried shuffling forward, probably about another inch. Pretty useless really, still out of range. These guys will stay put, but the 30th got up to two movement, and they elected to go for 1 because they didn't want to close too close to these guys. Hopefully, I decided to just move them 1 because they're out of musket range, which means they're out of charge range at the moment. I think they're about maybe 12 inches away, and they're hoping that the French cavalry will perhaps try and charge them, and basically move towards them ready to charge, and they can catch them with some fire, 1 round of fire before, perhaps if they're lucky they might be able to form square rather than be forced into a hasty square by the cavalry. So that is more or less the British movement phase explained. Now we've gone into combat phase. Now I did actually, even though the movement phase is over, I do kind of wish that I moved the Griffhorn Brigade, Griffhorn Battalion now, because they could have moved forward a little bit into the woods and maybe did a little bit of a right wheel, just to give them an extra couple of degrees of change of angle that would have allowed them to perhaps open up on that line infantry there, but I kind of forgot, so I guess they didn't. But then again, I suppose they might be a little bit too close to the enemy to start being able to actually manoeuvre around. So basically, shooting phase. The 30th are not really in range of anyone, but they have, I think they might possibly be in musket range of the 34th there, but they are actually. But only 1, I guess they might get 1 dice of that. I'll give them 1 dice. The Piano Division, or Battalion rather, will do their normal opening up on these boys. The 33rd Foot will open up on those guys, and I'll check in a second to see if any of those stands might be able to get 1 dice onto those guys as well. So we'll start off with the Piano Division, and their freshly raised roll. See what happens. They roll a 2, which is a panic. So they basically need a 6 to hit. So let's go for that now. So 3 dice, no modifiers, but needing 6s to hit. Okay, so we got a single hit, and the French save. Now let me just double check something. Do morale saves get affected by disorder? Doesn't say, do. So I'm guessing not. So basic save then, 4, 5 or 6, and they fail, so they will take another casualty, which brings them up to their full quota of 3, but I believe they've got to go over that to actually become disordered, so they're still holding fast at the moment. On to the next, so the 33rd firing at the 24th. Standard 3 dice, no modifiers. And we got a disorder, and a possible disorder, and a single hit. So let's roll some saves. Kind of feeling a little bit sorry for the French at the moment. They're really not having too much luck. So come on, at least let's get some saves in here. And they take a single hit. To make it fair, I will roll another dice. 1 to 3, they save on the 6, and 4 to 6, the normal hit. The normal hit. So they don't. I'm not sure if that's actually in the rules, but I'm just going to go for it for this turn. So those guys save both their hits. No, they don't. They take 1 hit. So they take 1 casualty marker because they saved the one that would have disordered them. If that's the rule. Obviously, if it's not, I apologise. Okay. And finally, oh actually, we have got the 1 dice of these boys at those, which we'll do in a second, and also let's quickly check. I think they might be able to get 2 dice into them. They're certainly in range. So, I'm just going to say 1 dice. It might possibly be 2, but just for ease of notion, we'll go for 1. So we've got 2 extra attacks. So these guys are going to fire at the 34th with 1 dice. No modifiers. They hit. Do they save? They do. And the Griffhorn division, which has to roll on the freshly raised chart, they get a 2, which means they need a 6 to hit. 1 dice against the 34th. They hit. Do they save? No. So they'll take another casualty marker. So there we go. This is not looking good for the French, but I guess at least they're not disordered. So that's the end of turn, I believe it could be 8 now. We got the Brits with relatively no damage whatsoever, just a single casualty marker on the 33rd. And the French, which are getting pommeled, we've got a completely disordered unit of chasseurs de cheval, which are basically pulling back. We've got the 24th with 2 casualty markers, but they have managed to stay in order. The 34th, which have taken their full quota of 3 and are disordered, and have also been pretty ineffectual. and of course the rest of the French army, which haven't even engaged yet, over here. So that's the state of the table at the moment, and of course the lowly old British cannon, which has been completely useless and still is. I really don't know what I'm going to do about that. I mean, manhandling artillery is slow, but then again they might be able to perhaps start manhandling it over in this direction, and they might be able to get a lucky pot shot at these the chasseurs de cheval through that gap between the in fact actually they're probably not able to do that anymore because the 30ths block that angle off. So basically that's the situation. The cannon's more or less doing nothing, and the French are getting pummeled. The commander is way out of command range of his line infantry, and these two units are just stuck doing nothing. So let's leave the situation and move back at the end of the next French movement. Okay, I'm back. This is turn 9, French movement phase. I did actually forget to move the brigade commander, so I'm just going to actually move him. I just had a quick reread of the rallying rules, thinking that I could rally a disordered unit, but it doesn't seem that you're able to. So what I decided to do was to move my brigade commander up closer to the line units, and they're going to attempt. Actually, I'm going to move him this way. He's going to attempt, because now he, I believe, is within 12 of these guys. He's going to issue a rally order on these boys, see if he can get rid of one of their casualty counters. So let's roll that live. Command rating of 8 with I believe it's a -1 because they're disordered. Let me just double check on that. Blah blah blah. Enemy unit within 12. So -1. Okay, so command rating of 7 then for this rally order, and fail. So it refuses to rally them. It's the end of their phase, but then they kind of already finished it. I've found out that these disordered guys shouldn't have been able to move. Again, I could be wrong. I didn't actually decide to actually look up this specific rule, but from what I read in the shooting section when I was going over, it doesn't look as if they are able to make a. But then again, they are marauder, aren't they? They might be able to. I've basically just allowed them to move back that one because I'm unsure. I'll need to sort of read a bit further into the rulebook to see if I can find that for sure. Obviously, these two units here didn't move. The 15th Light did actually move forward. They were hoping to get a 2 or 3 move, and they would have moved up and changed formation, but unfortunately they only got 1 move, which I suppose is better than nothing. So they are advancing. They're definitely out of range, so they haven't got anything to worry about being shot at the moment. And the old chasseurs de cheval down here, the old pillaging brigade, as they could be called, they have moved. They were out of range of a charge, so I decided to try and be sneaky, and they basically took a little bit of a wheel and moved right the way over to the edge of the table here, hoping to perhaps brave reduced fire from these boys, because I think only one stand might be to get a pot shot at them, and then perhaps try and flank them by going through the woods here and straight past them. Whether that will work or not, I'm not too sure, because obviously the woods are going to slow them down a little bit, but it's only light woods, so they'll still get, let's see what it is, like half move, so they'll still get like 5 inches, but yeah, that was their kind of chance of being a little bit sneaky, and like you just saw live on the camera, he tried to rally brigade commander tried to rally the unit, the 34th, which had taken the 3 casualties, to try and give them a little bit of a loss of a casualty marker, but failed. But then again, thinking about it, they're disordered, so you wouldn't be able to give them an order. So that was kind of pointless, really. So it's into French firing. These boys can't really do anything. So it's just the 1 unit, and I guess they're going to open fire at the 33rd line, or foot rather. So basic 3 dice. The -1 for the light cover, so then I need 5s or 6s to hit. And we get 2 hits. So the Brits will roll their saves. They get 1. So they will take a single casualty marker, which will get them up to 2. Now, the only British unit to take damage so far. So these guys got 2 units, but they're still holding fast. And that is the French firing phase over. They're really in a bad shape, the old French. We're going over to the British, and I'll be back at the end of the British movement, although I might be able to do it live because these guys aren't going to move. These guys, they could wheel, I suppose, or they could form square perhaps. Yeah, we're going to go. These guys are going to try and form a square. I might as well, I'll try and do it live because there's not much movement on this particular turn. So command rating of 8, no modifiers. Let's see what happens. 6. So they could actually take 2 moves, but they're going to try and form a square. So I can't really remember how you form a square, but we'll try. So is that it? Okay, I'm not 100% sure if that's actually a legal square, but it kind of looks like a square to me. So those guys have formed square, which is probably a good move. Let's check to see if these guys are in musket range of the chasseurs. I mean, I know they only get 1 dice per facing, but these guys are definitely out of the facing of those guys. They're in the facing of these guys, and they're just, well, I mean, if it's supposed to go to the unit leader, they're out of range. So no firing from those guys. The cannon, I think I might try and give them a move order. To see if they can perhaps swing it round and try heading towards the other side of the, maybe come off the hill and start pointing towards the chasseurs. Maybe they might get a pot shot at those guys perhaps. So let's roll for those guys to move. I believe they're out of command range, it'll be a -1. So an effective command range of 7 for these boys. And they roll a 6, which means they've got 1 move. And manhandled artillery only gets 3 inches. So what they'll do is they'll basically swing around and come off the hill. I'll put them there. But well, actually, they're more like there. So those guys are manhandling their cannon down the gentle slope of the hill. I suppose, if anything, at least they're in command range now. These boys, I'm thinking about moving these guys. Maybe, I don't know. Two. I mean, I suppose they could wheel, but they're too close to the enemy. I don't think they can. Correct me in the comments if that unit there wouldn't be able to, if they get a move, sort of semi-wheel around a little bit to be at an angle of on these guys, to give them maybe one or two dice, maybe possibly even three. But I think because they're close to the enemy, they can only move forward, I believe. So I'm not going to move them. Okay, so I think my battery's starting to run out on the camera, so I'm going to have to recharge it and come back for the British firing phase. Okay, I'm back. It's now several hours later. Camera's charged back up, and I actually kind of forgot whereabouts I was, so I had to basically watch the last sort of video snippet to remind myself of where we were. And it's actually the the British turns firing phase. So let's start that then. I measured the range from this square here to see if anyone could engage the chasseurs, and they're all basically out of range, so nothing's going to be happening there. Next up, I guess the Panay division will open fire on these boys, hoping to finish them off. They've already taken 3 casualties. The 33rd is going to open up on these boys, and one stand from the Griffin battalion will open fire on those guys to the 24th. So let's first of all do the Panay division opening fire on the 34th. So it's 3 dice, no modifiers, and they will make the roll on the freshly raised table because of the fact that they land there. And we've got a 5, which I believe is standard. Yeah, sterling job, no effect. So it'll be a standard firing, 3 dice, and let's see what happens. Okay, so we've got 1 single hit. The French will go for a save. This is a critical save for them. And saved. So they stand. Next, 33rd against the 24th. Again, 3 dice, no modifiers, and oh my god, we got 3 hits. 3 hits, all 6s. 3 crucial saves coming up here, otherwise they'll go disordered, and that will be half the brigade disordered. Let's see what happens. Okay, so 1 save, 2 saves, and 3 saves. They survived. They held. So they take nothing. And finally, the Panay division, not the Panay division, the Griffin battalion in the background there, and they roll Terror, which is a 6 to hit. And I'm also just going to double check. Now I can't remember whereabouts this table is actually. But yeah, I mean it's basically 6 to hit. Oh, 6 to hit and disordered. Oh, nasty. Okay, so they will roll to hit 1 dice. This is a bad choice. They do hit though. The French will get their save. and they fail it. So let's just work this out for a second. French get disordered. And the Griffhorn division get disordered. And the French take a casualty, which brings them up to 3 actually. So let's get the smoke on those boys and the smoke on those boys. So a bit of bad luck there for the old Griffon battalion, the Griffhorn battalion. That ends the British firing phase, and I'll be back again. Now I'll need to double check the rules, but I'll be back again after I have done to see if I don't think I need to make morale tests yet, because they haven't taken their full quota of casualties, or over their full quota of casualties. So I think they're okay. But I will just have a quick check of the rulebook, and I'll be back. It'll be turn 10, I believe, for the French movement. Turn 10 after this, or it could well be the end of the French. The end of the game, and the French have lost because they have actually got 3 broken units, or 3 disordered units, and only 2 units that are untouched. So I'll be back in a second. Okay, I'm back. Okay, so it appears that a unit that takes equal to its stamina also has to take a break test. So we've got 2 French line infantry units here that both have to take break tests. I'm a little bit late on this one. They should have took one last turn, really. So here we go. Let's look at the break test modifiers. Disordered -1, and suffered at least 1 casualty. Oh, it's not from artillery, so it's basically a -1. So this is the 34th rolling for morale, or to see if they break. We roll a 7, which is from shooting. The unit holds its ground, it stays where it is, it does not move. So basically that's 1. So that's another sort of broken unit. And the final one same modifier. So it's -1, 7 again. So it actually would have been 6, wouldn't it, for the first one? Yeah, holds its ground, stays where it is, and same. So both of them hold their ground. But they are both shaken as well. Now, theoretically, because of having 3 broken units and only having 2 unbroken units, I think that ends the game. And of course, the British are happy to allow the French to withdraw and take the victory. So that is the end of this battle report. I've made loads of rules mistakes, I know that for sure, but I hope you guys have found this quite interesting. I want to obviously try and improve how this went, because it started off really quite shoddy, along with some really quite shoddy handheld camera work from me. I might try to sort of replay this battle again in a week or two's time, getting a friend to perhaps be the cameraman. I think that will probably make this game go a lot quicker than it's been going. But I hope you enjoyed it. I'll give you a quick overrun of the table before we end. So we've got the chasseurs de cheval, aka the looting party that decided to go looting instead of following orders for like a good half of the game. We've got the 30th, who didn't really do anything apart from going to square in a reaction to these guys. And then we have the 3 units that fought quite well. Particularly the old Landwehr, even though they're really meant to be just normal Hanoverian line infantry. And of course, next time I play, I'll make them those. And of course, the old 33rd, which was the only British unit to take some casualties, and they took 2 in the end. And finally, the old poor old Griffhorn Brigade that just at that very last contact were struck by terror for some reason, and not only completely messed up their one stand of fire, but also decided to go into disorder at the same time. That, like I say, it's the end of the battle. Hope you enjoyed it. Feel free to correct me on the old rules in the comments. As far as like my sort of feelings on my first ever game of Black Powder, I think it more or less went like most of my first ever playthroughs of a game. You know, I come across the same sort of the bumps where you like, it doesn't matter how many times you read the rules, when it comes down to actually playing those rules out, you always forget them and have to go back and look them up. But where at the start of the battle I was a little bit dubious about the table setup, I kind of sort of grown to like it actually. It's I think the table came out quite cool. And it was especially cool to see the figures that I spent such a long amount of time painting actually on the battlefield. So that's the end of this video. I hope you enjoyed it. Feel free to comment, and I'll catch you in my next video. Who knows what that's going to be? It could well be Black Powder orientated again. Catch you later.